Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Christina, and we are the Connected in Glass podcast.
Every week, we will feature interviews with glass artists who speak to their creative processes and overcoming challenges.
These conversations are real and raw. We hope that by sharing these stories, you're able to find some connection and know that you're not alone.
We just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to our podcast. We're super passionate about this project and work for hours every week to bring you this content. So if you'd like to help support us, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/connectedinglass. Also, please consider joining our Facebook group, Connected in Glass Community, where we continue the conversations from these episodes. We'd love to hear from you.
Today, we're interviewing Fiona Anuweh. Fiona is a glass artist from Ashland, Oregon, in the Tucumã Territory, who has been working in glass since 2011. She creates ceremonial pipes and ritual tools with borosilicate glass.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks
Hello.
for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation.
All right. So, first, we just want to get to know a little bit about you. Maybe skip the glass part of your life for right now. You want to tell us what you enjoy and kind of work into what you do for a living and how you began your story with glass.
Awesome. Well, I've always been creative and into all the arts, writing, drawing, painting, poetry, and especially performance, theater, and singing, musical theater. All of that has featured largely in my life. And so that definitely set the stage for when glass would become part of my life. And then another passion has also always been wellness, mind, body, spirit. And for a while, I was actually studying to be a counselor. I was going to go into school to do therapy work. But then I did find glass. I met my partner Turtle at a small community music event, and we connected, and I got introduced to the world of borosilicate lamp working and fell just head over heels in love with the medium, and began my journey pretty much right away.
Cool. And when was that again?
So I met Turtle in the fall of 2010. And before then, I had no idea that pipes specifically were made here in my own backyard by actual people. When I had first started using cannabis, I didn't want to buy a pipe because there was so much social stigma about what it is to be a stoner. And so when I finally did go get one, it didn't occur to me that somebody had made it by their own two hands and that they were probably, in the neighborhood somewhere. So.
And did you start doing glass right away once you saw him working? And if you did you know this is going to be my thing?
Yeah, I like to say I got bit by the bug pretty hard because I was sitting there watching and just blown away and so inspired. Every time he made a little move or adjustment to the piece he was working on, I saw a whole world of things that it could go on to be. And so I was so filled with inspiration as I was watching that he finally was like, I think you probably, if you like watching that much and if you have that much interest in design, then maybe you need to just get your hands on a little bit. And the very first thing, the first things you make are blobs. You make weird, funny blobs for a little while. But the first thing I designed and planned to make was a ceremonial pipe with a feather on it. And it was the focus of my work from the jump was to make ceremonial glass because it was a place where plant medicine and art and ceremony all come together in this one object. And so it's I went straight for that, and I have not stopped.
That's so cool that you found your unique voice right away in that way.
Yeah, so like off of the glass, when I was a child, all through my adolescence and early childhood, I struggled with really severe anxiety and depression. It's something that runs really strong in my family, and I got it, and I struggled real hard for a long time. And then in 2003, my senior year of high school, I was in a car accident that broke my leg and my jaw, and my very best friend, who had just turned 16, was killed. It was a fatal car accident at a very impressionable age that left me with a lot of emotional and physical trauma. And I was, grateful for the support of Western medicine and the interventions they were able to do, but some of those interventions also exacerbated my problems and didn't fully address the wholeness of what that event was for me. And I saw so many different therapists and never found anybody that really felt like they could get in touch with the core of the pain that I was experiencing. Or to put it into context with, the foundation that I already had of anxiety and depression, to have that trauma on top of. So when I did find cannabis and other plant teachers, that marked the beginning of my journey into creating and holding healing space for myself in a way that is actually more traditional and ancient and culturally based. And so glass and glass pipes kind of married all of those interests in the healing journey for myself, reconnecting to rituals and tradition, and a whole cosmology of who human beings are in the scheme of the world and what our medicine is on the land. And so I feel really blessed to have found my way to Turtle and to have found a beautiful life partner there, and also a career that satisfies my need to be having that conversation and to amplify those ideas in our community.
Thanks so much for sharing. It was really cool to hear that part of you.
Yeah. Well, I was really excited about the premise of the podcast being about, mental health and wellness, because I know 100% of human beings on planet Earth are walking through life with trauma in their body and their psyche and in our ancestral line. And some of us are sensitive enough to feel the trauma that is stored in the land from things that have happened in the places that we live. And so I see cannabis and many other plant medicines as being a huge key to unlocking our healing, to transform all of that trauma, to let it out, to name it, to see it for what it is, to honor the medicine that it brings, and to do the work of healing that for ourselves and for each other.
And so all the work that you do is really special, and it has all these deep meanings. How do you find customers that follow along the same wavelength as you? Are they just drawn to you, or you just kind of put it out in the world and hope that you hear from the right people?
Yes, I have always received wonderful support and feedback from day one. The first time I ever showed work to anyone anywhere was in 2011 at the Degenerate Flame Off in Eugene, Oregon. And there I connected with Jenny Knudsen, who at the time worked for Troutman Art Glass. And I showed her my work and I said, this is what I like to make. Can you help me find some colors that have these kind of earthy feels? And, I just came and asked for guidance, and she gave me so much positive reinforcement of like, this is beautiful. You've been on the torch how long? You definitely need to keep going. Here's some colors I recommend for you. And we've been dear close friends ever since. But I found that in terms of the network, as long as I'm showing up in my authenticity and bringing the things that I love and are important to me, that there are plenty of folks that feel it. They feel my work. They feel me. They have already thought that way, and it reinforces their ideologies, or it appeals to the part of them that wants to grow and expand that part of their awareness. And so, yes, it's always been very organic that people find me and I find people, and it's come very easy for me.
And what's it like to work in the same industry as your partner? Do you find that your work always complements each other, or do you find that maybe opposites attract, or a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. We have a very different temperaments. Turtle is quiet and, you know, steady and smooth and just like really easygoing. And I'm very excitable and energetic, and so we balance each other in our personalities a lot that way. And then with our glass, he has a huge focus on marine life, and he also has, over a decade over on me experience. So his technique is always going to be head and shoulders. He's a way better glass blower than I am, and it will probably always be that way because of how much more time he has just in on the medium. But our work looks nice together because he trained me. I also speak the language of Dichro and have access to his knowledge when I can be humble enough to ask for some help. Or so yeah, though my aesthetic is super focused on like the ceremonial things and a little bit more of an earthy flavor, where he's watery. I'm earthy and fiery, and he's watery. But we also use a lot of the similar materials, and so when we do put our work out, it does end up working out to complement each other nicely.
Do you find as a woman in the glass industry that you're treated as an equal in that regard, or do you find that people kind of brush you off a little bit?
I definitely receive equal treatment from a select few, and from the rest, it is rowdy. It's real rowdy. Oh man, it's real hard to be a woman in the glass industry. But that's part of the collective trauma that we're all processing through, the ways that the feminine in general has been subjugated to the will of industry and patriarchy and all the isms that keep everyone kind of detached from their personal power. So, but fortunately, I knew the landscape of a woman in the world in a very clear and explicit way before I entered the glass industry. And I knew going into it that the deck would be a little bit stacked against me because of general attitudes towards women and the lack of women in the industry, especially at that time. It's gotten better. But yeah, I get lowballed. I get just yanked around on, like, I'm actually in the middle of a moment where a customer asked for a custom piece and then wanted it to be a collab with another artist who's a man. And so they were just being real hard on me and real specific about what they want, and just over and over laying out all the things and lowballing the price, and went ahead and paid the male artist double what he was offering for my budget for the piece to do for me, and paid him right away, and didn't give him any trouble, because the other artist and I are talking. We've collabed before. It's a remix of another piece we've done, and so we've been comparing notes on the side. And so I'm in real time, I'm seeing how much more he's bossing me around, and how much he's like, oh, my funds are tight. Oh, but you just dropped $500 for one part of this piece with somebody else. So yeah, and I've had shop owners be extra hard on me, and yeah, I've just like, everybody wants to devalue my work, and not everybody. Plenty of folks support my work and tell me to charge more, and I get lots of love and support, plenty of love and support. But there is definitely a huge piece of that element of being harder on a woman, just because that's the cultural waters we swim in these days. But I also don't take it personally. part of what I've come here to confront and make better. So
How do you maintain your very specific style and purpose of your pipes when the rest of the pipe industry, quite frankly, isn't anywhere near what your style of work is?
it's really easy in the industry to go with the trends because there's this temptation to you want to blow up. You want to be the next hot thing. You want to charge, baller prices and be a hype artist. And I think that pulls people out of the integrity a little bit of what the work is, what the potential of the work is. And I'm not in a judgment of people who feel that way. I totally understand. And those pressures are really real because you want to be able to have a thriving business and feel validated that what you're bringing is wonderful and worthy. But I have found that as I listen for guidance and ask for inspiration from the greater powers of nature and the will of love, if you will, if God or Creator, Great Spirit, if that is the energy of love and the wisdom and groundedness of our Mother Earth, and as I seek the guidance and support of those forces, of my ancestors, of what serves my community, then I'm able to act on that inspiration and stay grounded in that. And that's just stayed really consistent for me. And the visions and the particulars and the details that evolve and come from that have always hit when I make an offering and it's come from that place. Then it hits and I have success. And I have my Rainbow Warrior series is the first major production series that I launched about it's been maybe 6 or 7 years now. And the design hasn't changed much. The pieces haven't changed much. And I still get orders and reorders for those pieces because they are still resonating with people. And so I think I'm really committed to listening to what will serve my community the most and put my love and care and aesthetic into it, and it hits. And whenever I've tried to be like, everybody wants a rig, everyone's a dab rig, make dab rigs, gotta figure out a dab rig, make it, you can make it your style, make it like you like it, like make it look like your other pieces, but it doesn't hit because I'm doing it to chase the moment. And there's plenty of people chasing the moment and there's plenty of dab rigs out there, but I feel like they're what I bring is something only I am bringing. And so I just have to keep doing that. And I trust that everybody that wants to do that can do that. There's room for all of the voices in the conversation. So.
When you have a new idea, like a new design that you want to work out, how do you do that? Do you draw it out or do you like play with clay or another medium? Or are you one of those visual people that can kind of see it in their head and craft it up in that manner?
I often see it or have dreams. Some of my work comes in dreams to me. But I just do a quick little, usually a pencil sketch right at my, like I'll get to my bench, I'll get set up for the day and I'll sketch out whatever the idea was just to have a sense of like the proportions, how much material I'm going to get ready. And then I do it. And then if it goes well, then I keep going. And if it doesn't go well, I'll be like, Turtle, how do I make it do the thing I want it to do? And yeah, so I ask for inspiration, I sketch it out, and I ask for help if I'm having trouble getting the effect I'm after.
And do you work from home? Do you have your own studio or do you two share space with others?
We currently work from home. It's the first home studio I've ever worked in. And we've been here for about 2.5 years. But I did get my start at a big facility. For about 8 years, Turtle was an owner at Dichroic Alchemy. And so they do custom dichroic images and tubing. And we had a giant 4,000 square foot warehouse where the imaging happened. We had a classroom, we had 10 rental stations, and like a gallery space, all in that one thing. And so I cut my chops in a very social space, which I super appreciated that time. There was a lot of wonderful learning and sharing and growing, and and also I have a almost 5-year-old. My son will be 5 tomorrow, actually. And so being home, having a home studio these past couple of years, obviously in the upside down pandemic times, has been incredible. It's so nice to live and work at home and be here, and have my partner also live and work at home, so we can just organically share our schedule as needed with him. And we actually do still have 2 other spots in our garage. So there's another full-time artist that is there, and my dear friend Sarah, I'm so excited, Sarita Glass. She was part of the crew at Dichroic Alchemy as a renter in that space. She's coming back for the summer just to be a guest in our home and studio, and I'm so excited for that, because it is nice to have other people crushing out and being productive and sharing the struggles and the glory of glass life.
And just for a couple more practical questions that I have, how do you make your income? Do you mostly sell things online yourself? And is it more production work, or do you sell it out to other stores?
90% of my business is wholesale to head shops across the country. We do trade shows. Actually, we're going to Las Vegas. It was a big struggle to decide whether or not that made sense this year. Would the buyers be there? But is it safe, medically safe to be there? But we've been really fortunate to have lots of great relationships with shops. And so we have ongoing relationships with shops that reorder, and I have new shops connecting with me on Instagram often. And I do have an Etsy store for retail, but it's not. It's more of a space to just show the work to folks who don't have access to my work in shops. Not every community is glass friendly, or not every community has my work in it, obviously. But and I run the occasional auction on my Instagram as well, but the bulk is definitely wholesale orders of production pieces.
How do you balance your work life with being a mom, and how do you integrate the skills that you've learned to get through your anxiety and depression into being a parent? Like, are you working to pass that off to your kid?
I was actually successfully able to transform that rhythm in my life well before I had a child. I did not want to have a partner, I didn't want to get married or have children for most of my life because of my anxiety and depression. But as I found cannabis by the time I was like 19. I had started using cannabis, not medically, just recreationally. And sometimes it would kick my anxiety up a little bit. And so I learned to pay attention to when I smoke, how much I smoke, what I'm smoking. And I started getting in touch with other plant teachers, like valerian root tincture came in through a friend who also had struggled with anxiety specifically. And so I started realizing that there was many approaches to balancing my biology through plant helpers. And eventually, when I was maybe 20 years old, I also tried psilocybin for the first time, and it was recreational, but I had a very profound breakthrough moment during that trip. And I was able to sense the love and support that is available at all times without exception. And to see that we could access that well-being and healing at any time, and that we can do it with or without plant medicines. And so it was the psilocybin actually began a season of less and less anxiety and depression episodes, and to where I haven't had anxiety or depression in close to 15 years. I was able to be completely liberated from that cycle because of my plant medicines and cultural healings. I started researching. So I have some Cherokee ancestry and Irish ancestry and Scandinavian ancestry. Those are the major contributors to my lineage. And so I started investigating the cultural and spiritual practices of those cultures and started practicing some of those cultural practices with friends that shared common lineage. And so there are grounding and protecting and healing rituals and ceremonies that we started to practice in conjunction with using the support of the plant relatives. And so I was able to liberate myself from the cycles of anxiety and depression with those two like community cultural pieces and plant interventions. And so that is part of why I even began to be open to the idea of having a child, because I saw that it was possible to heal from those things, like to cope with those things first, and then to actually be fully liberated from those things. And that opened up the space to be ready to take on the responsibility of raising a whole and healthy human being and offering the things that I have learned to a whole new person and give them the chance to be in the world without the traumas and without the manifestations of trauma, as I see anxiety and depression to be. They're a very legitimate response to a world in trauma. It's not a brokenness of a person. It's a response to brokenness around us, I feel. And because of my work in glass, I also knew that I had a partner who respected my work and my time and would value the work of birth and mothering in its all its glory, all its guts and glory, and would share the labor of caring for our home and our child in a balanced way. So I knew that I was going to be able to offer this child a household in which the masculine and feminine were balanced and held in high regard. And we would be able to have a schedule that would allow us to be present for the rearing of our child together, and offer our babe an opportunity to be in the world as a light bringer with us, because we don't have to pass on our traumas. Turtle and I both did a lot of work on our own personal traumas before we came into parenthood, and we created a life for ourselves that had a lot of room to raise our kid in the cultural values that we hold.
Is he interested in glass at all?
Yeah. His preschool teacher did an assignment with them this last year. and where they asked what they want to be when they grow up, and he said glass blower, and the teacher helped him write, when I grow up I want to be a glass blower. And so we have that up in the shop. So it's no pressure. I love the idea of having a glass family, but he is free to do whatever he wants to do. But I am excited to give him the gifts of entrepreneurship and being self-directed and being to own his time and to choose how to share his gifts with the world in whatever way serves him, whether that is a artist or anything he might choose to do. I feel like being in a family of self-employed full-time artists it's a strong start to launch into whatever he wants to do, but he is welcome to be part of our glass blowing circus.
Do you have any advice for people who are trying to learn how to break that generational and surrounding trauma?
Yeah, definitely. If you know your lineage, basic research on the Google will show you your ancestral lands. It'll tell you about the cultural and spiritual practices of your ancestors. And I highly recommend getting in there and experimenting with those things, finding people that are interested to share that journey with you, and get in and do some witchcraft, honey. Get in and try it. There's a lot of work and resources around healing ancestral wounds as well, to acknowledge that most of us carry a lineage of people that have been oppressed and people that did the oppressing. And I also honor that the ones that did the oppressing did it because they had been oppressed and they were paying the trauma forward. So there's a huge space of compassion for all lineages. But acknowledging that and doing rituals for yourself, prayers for yourself, intending for yourself to offer healing behind you and forgiveness behind you, so that you can be in right relationship, especially with your well ancestors. If they're, if you have ancestors that did a lot of trauma, like created and forwarded a lot of trauma, then they may or may not be available to you in a supportive way now. So you're not going to reach for them in your moment of need because they don't have it. Possible that that's what's happening. So learning how to reach for the well ancestors is a big piece of it. And it doesn't matter what your lineage is, ancestor work can be super powerful. And the other thing, so obviously I love plant medicines. Plant medicines are great teachers, coming with humility and respect, as you would, if you were going to go learn Kung Fu and you went to see a Kung Fu master, you would come with humility and respect for the wisdom that they carry. Bring that to our plant teachers. Take a moment with your cannabis as you pack your bowl to honor its gifts and to ask for what you want. If you're looking for physical pain relief, if you're looking for creative inspiration, like, be clear about what you're using your medicines for. And develop a one-to-one relationship with the land and the sun and the whole star nation, really. Like, the celestial energy is a whole relationship of its own, because that's also part of the ancestor realm, in my understanding. But thinking of the earth as our ancient mother, and thinking of her as as being here to support us and nourish us, and coming into our power. At first, as a child, you come to her as a child and you just rest in her nourishment and let her support you, and talk to her and listen to her, sit with her and listen to her. That practice is really powerful. And as an extension of that practice, thinking of the trees and plants and animals as your family, as your kinship network, that they're also here in support of the whole web of life. And we are part of that web of life. So learning how to receive the support that's in the field for us as a gateway to also coming into our responsibility as caretakers for the field. It's one thing to receive the healing, and it's a whole other ballpark to become a partner in the creative life force energy, to put healing and well-being into the field, to defend the land from destruction, to being a collaborator with the web of life. That is a whole nother level of feeling empowered and well, and having purpose. And all of those things are crucial for our mental and emotional well-being, because our identity has been limited to the small, discrete self. And that's a cultural story that I believe is part of the trauma we're all experiencing. We're not taught from an early age that we are a meaningful part of a beautiful web of life, and that's all working together in an intricate balance, and that we have gifts to give and we are constantly receiving gifts. And so having a sense of self that includes every beautiful flower and every tiny critter really expands my sense of self and my sense of well-being. And so grounding into those concepts are incredibly liberating. So I recommend all that.
I feel like I have to listen to this over and over again a few times to just fully comprehend it. I think it's so cool. I think it really says a lot on how much work you did to get through, those traumas that you had and to get through that anxiety and depression. I was wondering, we all have days, and maybe it's that I'm labeling it this way. Like I have good days and bad days. Like some mornings I wake up and maybe it's just something natural, like I have period cramps or something like that. So say that you wake up and your body isn't necessarily completely on its top game. Do you just kind of go into your rituals and your routines and you don't let it bring you down? Or do you have days where you feel like it's a little harder to stay in this space that you are in?
There's definitely days where it's harder. And sometimes I know that it's my body, and sometimes I know it's my emotional or spiritual system. And sometimes it doesn't feel like mine. It feels like it's ours. And so being able to notice the subtle differences between those things really informs how I approach it. If it's just mine, sometimes I just need a little bit more rest. Maybe I haven't been taking my vitamins, like my approach to deal with it is going to be different. But yes, having personal rituals, because taking your vitamins is a ritual. It is a ceremony, like everything can be a ceremony. And our whole life is a ceremony, really. And the thing that makes something a ceremony is the focus and intention, how much of ourselves we bring to bear in that moment. But I also have learned that big, hard feelings are important, and they deserve our respect and our care. And so sometimes I can do some ninja moves and get my head right and get my energy up and go forth and prosper. And sometimes I am just going to barely get through the day, and I'm going to barely just like get my kid taken care of, and everything I was supposed to do might not come together for me that day. It doesn't happen super often, but it does happen. And I have to just understand that there's a lot of energy moving, especially in the upside down, especially in pandemic times. There's a lot of energy moving through the field, and it is only going to stagnate and stifle and get putrid if it's left unattended. And so putting air on it, learning how to talk about it in a way that, that I take responsibility for my part, and I'm not just smearing the trauma around for everybody to enjoy. Learning to honor and accept and love the part of me that's feeling that way, and say these things are valid. I'm allowed to feel this way. This is an appropriate response to whatever's going on. It's so important to not bully ourselves out of whatever the feeling is. We deserve love and care, no matter if we are feeling shiny and pretty or if we're feeling like the troll under the bridge. That part deserves love and care too. It comes up because it's not getting enough love and care, I believe. So it depends on what's going on, because some things, yes, you can tune yourself up and through, and some things just need the space to be present for a little while, and it all deserves some love and respect.
Thank you for that. That was really good.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that the people listening heard?
Yes, everybody needs to be grounding their energy and protecting their energy. And so there's some simple ways that you can do that, and it's really quick. And I've been really doubling down on this practice recently, and it's been making a huge difference for me. So I think that if it's something that is helpful to me, it's probably going to be helpful to everybody. And it's just taking a moment to imagine roots growing out of your body down into the earth. And if you're inside, picture the roots moving through the carpet and the insulation and the cement. Picture your roots going down through the soil, through the other roots of the plants around, through the rocks. And your roots might be reaching for an underground water source, or they might reach for a big old chunk of crystal deep down in the earth, or they might touch the heat of our core. Like whatever it is, find a place to wrap your roots around and ground. And you can take your time about this imagination, or you can be pretty quick about it in the moment. If you feel yourself off center or out of your power, or feeling vulnerable or scared or anxious, taking a moment to energetically connect yourself to our Earth Mother, and even visualize seeing that energy come up the root system into your physical system. And then to protect yourself, you can imagine a small fire in your heart center and just expand it with every breath, make it a little bigger until you have a nice glowing ball of light energy around you. Because we have an energetic spiritual body that is interacting with the whole world around us all the time. And we have not been trained on how to source energy, to resource energy for ourselves, or how to not take ownership of something that's not ours. Because we all come with our work to do, and we are all affecting each other with our energy. And sometimes we take on responsibility for energy that is not ours, and there's no way we can fix it because it wasn't ours. So having a protection practice and a grounding practice is crucial for everybody at this time. And it's really nice to do when you're about to smoke some cannabis as well. So if no other time, do it when you smoke a bowl. And I found, like, I might be in a social situation or just in the grocery store or whatever, and I'll just notice something, I feel anxious or just off center, and I can do those things and I feel much more clear and calm. So I encourage anybody that hasn't developed a practice for grounding and protecting to do something like that, or Google it. There's lots of things you can imagine for those, but they help me a lot.
Thank you so much.
Super solid advice there. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for all your time and thought.
Absolutely. I'm super honored to be invited to have this conversation with y'all, and I'm really grateful to do the work I do and be on this wild ride with everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Connected in Glass. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more information on the artists we interview and for updates on the podcast.